Los Angeles, California, March 1977. Bob Marley had just finished a sold-out concert at the Forum. 2 hours of pure energy, 18,000 people singing every word, standing ovations, encore after encore. Bob was exhausted but exhilarated. He'd conquered America. Reggae had arrived. If you love discovering the untold stories behind music history's most incredible moments, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell because we uncover the hidden gems that shaped the legends we know today. After the show, Bob's tour manager suggested dinner at Le Jardin, one of LA's most exclusive French restaurants. "You deserve it, Bob. Best food in the city. Let's celebrate." Bob wasn't big on fancy restaurants. He preferred simple Jamaican food, home cooking, street vendors. But his band was excited, and Bob figured why not. They'd worked hard. They deserved a nice meal. Le Jardin was in Beverly Hills, all white tablecloths and crystal chandeliers. Expensive cars lined the street outside. Through the windows, Bob could see well-dressed people eating, drinking wine, laughing. Bob walked to the entrance with 3 of his band members. He wore jeans, a button-up shirt, and a leather jacket. His dreadlocks hung past his shoulders, tied back loosely. He looked exactly like Bob Marley looked. Like himself. The host stood at a podium just inside the door. His name was Philippe Rousseau, a thin white man in his 50s with slicked back hair and a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Good evening, gentlemen," Philippe said. His smile faltered slightly when he saw Bob's dreadlocks. "Do you have a reservation?" "Yeah, under Morrison. Party of 4, Bob's tour manager said. Philippe checked his book. "Ah, yes, Mr. Morrison. Table for 4. He looked up at Bob and his band members. His expression shifted. "However, I'm afraid there's an issue." "What issue?" Bob asked calmly. "Our dress code, sir. We require proper attire for all guests." Bob looked down at his clothes. "What's wrong with what I'm wearing?" Felipe's discomfort was visible. "It's not the clothing per se, sir. It's your hair." "My hair?" "We have a grooming policy. Hair must be properly maintained and styled. I'm afraid dreadlocks don't meet our standards." The words hung in the air. Bob stared at Philippe. His band members looked at each other, anger rising. "Let me understand," Bob said, his voice still calm. "You're saying I can't eat here because of my hair?" "It's restaurant policy, sir. We've had this policy for years. It applies to everyone." "Does it?" Bob asked. "Because I see people in there with long hair. I see people with beards. What's different about mine?" Felipe's face reddened. "Sir, I don't make the rules. I simply enforce them. If you'd like, I can recommend several other establishments that might be more accommodating." "More accommodating to black people with dreadlocks?" one of Bob's band members said. "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to," Bob interrupted quietly. He turned to his manager. "Let's go." They walked out. Bob's band members were furious, talking loudly about discrimination, about calling lawyers, about making sure this restaurant paid for their racism. But Bob was quiet. He stood on the sidewalk outside Le Jardin, looking at the restaurant, at the people inside eating their expensive meals, completely unaware of what had just happened at their door. "Bob, we should sue them," his manager said. "This is illegal. Discrimination based on race and—" "No," Bob said. "No? Bob, they can't treat you like this. You're Bob Marley. You just sold out the Forum." "They didn't refuse me because I'm Bob Marley," Bob said calmly. "They refused me because I'm a black man with dreadlocks. And if they'll do it to me, they're doing it to everyone who looks like me." Bob walked across the street to the parking lot. It was a public lot, half empty, with a few dim streetlights. Bob sat down on the curb, right at the edge of the lot, facing the restaurant. "What are you doing?" his manager asked. "They say I can't eat in their restaurant," Bob said. "But this is a public space, so I'm going to sit here." Bob opened his guitar case and took out his acoustic guitar. He'd brought it from the venue, hadn't had time to leave it at the hotel. "Bob, man, let's just go somewhere else," one of his band members said. "You can go," Bob said. "I'm staying." Bob began tuning his guitar. His band members looked at each other, then sat down beside him on the curb. If Bob was staying, they were staying. Bob started playing, the opening chords of Get Up, Stand Up. His voice carried across the parking lot, across the street. Get up, stand up for your rights. A couple walking past on the sidewalk stopped. They recognized Bob immediately. "Oh my God, that's Bob Marley," the woman said. "Get up, stand up, don't give up the fight." More people stopped. Within 5 minutes, 20 people had gathered in the parking lot. Some sat on the curb with Bob. Others stood nearby, swaying to the music. Bob transitioned into No Woman, No Cry. More people came. 40 people. 60. Word was spreading fast. Bob Marley is playing in a parking lot on Wilshire Boulevard. Inside Le Jardin, diners started noticing. The music was audible through the windows. People got up from their tables to look outside. "Is that Bob Marley?" someone asked. The restaurant manager, a man named Charles Beaumont, came to the window. He saw the growing crowd. He saw Bob sitting on a curb, playing guitar, creating a spontaneous concert in his parking lot. "What is he doing?" Charles asked Philippe. "I refused him entry, sir. Dress code violation. The Dreadlocks." "You refused Bob Marley?" "I enforced our policy, sir." Charles watched the crowd grow. 100 people now. Cars were pulling over. People were getting out, joining the crowd. The parking lot was filling up, and Le Jardin's dining room was emptying out. Customers were leaving their tables, walking outside to see Bob. Some left without paying. Others paid quickly and rushed out. Within 30 minutes, Bob had drawn over 300 people. The parking lot was packed. Traffic on Wilshire Boulevard had slowed to a crawl as people tried to see what was happening. Police cars arrived, but the officers just directed traffic. Bob wasn't breaking any laws. He was just sitting in a public parking lot, playing music. By the time Bob finished Redemption Song, Le Jardin was nearly empty. Maybe 10 tables still had customers. Everyone else had left. Charles Beaumont watched his restaurant empty and his chest tightened with panic. This was a disaster, a public relations nightmare. Bob Marley, one of the most famous musicians in the world, refused service because of his hair, now performing a free concert that had emptied his restaurant. Charles walked outside. He pushed through the crowd until he reached Bob. Over 500 people now surrounded the parking lot. It was the strangest concert venue imaginable. A Beverly Hills parking lot, lit by streetlights and car headlights, with one of the world's greatest musicians sitting on a curb. "Mr. Marley," Charles said, his voice shaking slightly. "May I speak with you?" Bob looked up. "You the manager?" "Yes, sir, Charles Beaumont. I own Le Jardin." "You the one with the policy about dreadlocks?" Charles swallowed hard. Every eye in the crowd was on him. "Mr. Marley, there's been a misunderstanding. We would be honored to have you dine with us. Please come inside." Bob kept playing his guitar. "What changed?" I apologize. Our policy was wrong. Please let me make this right." "Your restaurant is empty now," Bob said, nodding toward Le Jardin. "Everyone's out here. Why? Because they'd rather sit in a parking lot with me than eat your fancy food without music, without soul, without truth." The crowd cheered. Someone yelled, "Tell him, Bob!" "Mr. Marley, please, I'm very sorry. Our policy was discriminatory. I see that now. Please come inside. Dinner is on us. You and your entire band." Bob stopped playing. He looked at Charles, then at Le Jardin, then at the crowd surrounding him. "I appreciate your apology," Bob said, "but I don't need your free dinner. What I need is for you to understand something." Bob stood up. The crowd went quiet. "You didn't refuse me because my hair is dirty or unprofessional," Bob said, his voice carrying clearly in the night air. "My hair is clean. My hair is part of my culture, my religion, my identity. You refused me because you thought dreadlocks meant I was less than, that I didn't deserve to sit in your restaurant with your other customers. Charles said nothing, his face red with shame. But look around, Bob continued, gesturing to the crowd. These people didn't care about your dress code. They came out here to listen to music, to be together. Rich people, poor people, black people, white people, all sitting in a parking lot because that's what music does. It brings people together. Your policy? That tears people apart. The crowd applauded. Someone started chanting, "Bob, Bob, Bob." Others joined in. Bob picked up his guitar again. "I'm not coming into your restaurant, Mr. Beaumont. But I'll tell you what I will do. I'll keep playing out here. And anyone who wants to listen is welcome. Because music doesn't have a dress code. Music doesn't care what you look like. Music is for everyone." Bob played for another hour. The crowd grew to nearly 1,000 people. Someone brought pizza and started handing out slices. Another person brought drinks. It became an impromptu street party, a celebration of music and community and defiance of discrimination. Le Jardin remained nearly empty. Charles Beaumont sat in his office, his head in his hands, watching thousands of dollars in lost revenue disappear while Bob Marley created magic in his parking lot. The next day, the story was everywhere. Bob Marley refused service at Beverly Hills restaurant, performs parking lot concert. The Los Angeles Times ran it front page. TV news covered it. Radio DJs talked about it all day. Le Jardin was flooded with phone calls. Some were supportive, but most were angry. "How dare you refuse Bob Marley? Your racist policy is disgusting. I'll never eat at your restaurant again." Charles Beaumont called a press conference 2 days later. He stood in front of cameras and reporters, looking exhausted and defeated. "On behalf of Le Jardin, I want to apologize publicly to Mr. Bob Marley and to the community. Our dress code policy was discriminatory and wrong. We have immediately changed our policy. All hairstyles, including dreadlocks, are now welcome at our restaurant. We were wrong. I was wrong. And I'm sorry." A reporter asked, "Have you spoken to Bob Marley directly?" "I've tried. He hasn't responded to my calls. I don't blame him." "What would you say to him if you could?" Charles paused. "I'd say thank you. Thank you for showing me what I'd become. I opened this restaurant 30 years ago because I loved bringing people together through food. But somewhere along the way, I started pushing people out instead. Bob Marley reminded me what hospitality really means. It means welcoming everyone. Not just the people who look a certain way or dress a certain way. Everyone." 3 months later, Charles Beaumont did something unexpected. He invited Bob back to Los Angeles and offered him something. "I want to sponsor a free concert in that parking lot, the place where you showed me what matters. I'll pay for everything. I'll provide food for anyone who comes. And all I ask is that you let me say sorry one more time in front of everyone." Bob considered the offer. Then he agreed. "But on one condition. The money you were going to spend on fancy decorations and expensive catering? You donate half of it to local community centers in black neighborhoods." "Done," Charles said immediately. Concert happened in June 1977. Over 5,000 people came to that parking lot. Bob performed for 3 hours. Le Jardin provided simple food, not fancy French cuisine, but soul food, Jamaican food, tacos, pizza. Food that brought people together. And Charles Beaumont stood at the edge of the crowd, watching, learning, understanding, finally, what he should have known all along. That dignity doesn't have a dress code, that culture deserves respect, and that the best things in life happen when you open your doors to everyone. Today, that parking lot still exists. There's a small plaque embedded in the concrete. On March 15, 1977, Bob Marley was refused service because of his dreadlocks. He sat in this parking lot and played music instead. His response to discrimination became a celebration. His response to hate became love. Never forget, music belongs to everyone. Le Jardin eventually closed in 1995. Charles Beaumont never fully recovered from the publicity disaster. But before he closed, he did one thing right. He hired a diverse staff, he welcomed everyone, and he put a quote from Bob Marley in his menu. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel all right.